Toro contour cutting rotary Groundsmaster models are all powerful grass mowers designed for large area and volume cutting. The new designs of these units have many new features to improve productivity. All mowing equipment can be dangerous when not used properly. You must use each mower correctly and with attention to safety to protect yourself and those around your work site. This program will help you become familiar with the safety practices to operate the Groundsmaster 4500, 4700, 4300, 3500, and 3505 models. But this program is not a substitute for reading the operator's manual. The manual is in the storage tube. You can also find a copy of the manual online at Toro.com. Go to the Customer Care section under Operators and Parts Manuals. It's also important that you complete the Toro Turf Maintenance Safety Education Program and Test. They are also available online at Toro.com under the Customer Care section in the Education and Technical Reference section. There are many common features to each mower model, so this program will show features and functions on one model. The use of other mowers is essentially the same. There are some features or procedures that apply only to specific models. Those features will be noted by the model number on screen as the topic is discussed. These Groundsmasters are available to meet European CE compliance requirements with some additional components installed. Wing cutting deck lift latches lock the side cutting decks in the raised position for transport on the Groundsmaster 4700. Your owner's manual has other CE compliance components listed, or contact your local Toro distributor for more information on CE compliance items. All contour cutting Groundsmaster models have Contour Plus ground following cutting decks. The decks pivot both forward and backward and to either side to stay close to the turf surface without scalping. Each cutting deck is 27 inches or 69 centimeters in width, except on the 4300 model, which carries 5 22-inch or 59 centimeter cutting decks. Total cutting widths range from 68 to 150 inches, or 172 to 381 centimeters, depending on the model you are using. All models have a rollover protection system, or ROPS, and seat belt, which you should always use during operation. Safety and instruction labels, or decals, are located at key points on the equipment. Look for these decals and obey them. Alert symbol indicates a hazard to be avoided. Read the operator's manual to understand the hazard and how to avoid it. All operators should be trained before operating a piece of machinery. Thrown objects hazard. Keep bystanders a safe distance from the machine. Watch out for areas where you might throw debris toward people, buildings, or vehicles. Cutting dismemberment hazard. Keep hands and feet away from these areas, where moving parts and blades could cause serious injury. Never put your hand or foot in or near any moving part. Tipping hazard. Use caution when driving on slopes to avoid a tip-over hazard. Drive slowly and avoid any sharp turns. Never operate a piece of equipment on a slope that has not been approved by your supervisor. Fire hazard. Keep all ignition sources away from the area when adding fuel, and don't overfill the fuel tank. You will find other decals and labels at various places on the equipment. Be sure you know what each one means, and follow the instructions to protect you and others around you and the machine. Proper clothing and protective gear help keep you safe during operation. Avoid any loose-fitting clothing that could get caught in moving parts. Wear substantial leather shoes or work boots. Safety glasses and hearing protection are always a good idea and may be required. Make sure you check local ordinances, insurance, and facility regulations for proper protective gear. Personal headphones do not provide hearing protection and can distract you from safely operating the equipment. You should never use headphones. You need to be alert and aware during operation of any powered equipment. Never operate the equipment when you are drowsy or possibly affected by prescription medications, alcohol, or drugs. To get on the unit, step up on the left side of the machine into the operator area. For models with the standard seat, sit in the seat and adjust it to a comfortable position. The seat adjusting lever allows you to adjust the seat forward and backward. The weight adjusting knob adjusts the seat for the operator's weight. The weight gauge indicates when the seat is adjusted to the weight of the operator to properly engage interlocks. The height adjusting knob adjusts the seat for the operator's height. If the unit has an air ride suspension seat, adjust the air ride suspension by turning the ignition key to the on position without starting the engine. Then pull up or push down on the gray lever underneath the seat. This adds or releases air to the suspension. A visual indicator will show green when the air suspension is within appropriate range. Adjust the tilt angle of the seat back with the gray lever located under the left side armrest. You can adjust the left armrest angle by turning the knob located under the armrest. On the 4300, 4500, and 4700 models, adjust the tilt steering by stepping on the lever on the steering column near the floor. Move the steering column toward or away from you for the most comfortable position. On the 3500 and 3505 models, use the tilt steering lever near the wheel to adjust the steering column angle to a comfortable position. On the 4500 and 4700 models, the brake pedals lock together to engage the parking brake. They can also be used separately for steering brake pedals. To set the parking brake, lock the brake pedals together like this. push down on both pedals and press the top right pedal to latch. Push the brake pedal down to release. On the 4300 model, press the brake pedal down until it locks to set the parking brake. Press it down to the floor to release. On the 3500 and 3505 models, braking during operation is through release of the traction pedal. A parking brake lever by the operator's seat is used for securing the mower when not in use. The traction pedal controls forward and reverse travel on all models. On the 4500 and 4700, the high and low range switch selects the speed for mowing or transport. Use high range for transport and low range for mowing. When shifting between high and low, the mower must be traveling less than 2 miles per hour. Mow only in low range. The cutting decks will not operate or lower when the speed control switch is set to high range. On the 4300 model, a mow speed limiter flips down to the floor toward the operator for transport and flips up to limit the maximum speed for mowing. On the 3500 and 3505 models, use the mow or transport slider near the traction pedals to set that function. The cutting decks will only operate when the slider is set to mow position. The 4300, 4500, and 4700 models all have Toro's control hub console, with indicators or gauges on the console or armrest side panel. Controls and gauges for the 3500 and 3505 will be described separately. The lift switch or joystick raises and lowers the cutting decks and allows the decks to float. Pushing the switch or stick forward drops the decks, and backward raises the decks. The 4700 has 2 additional lift switches for the wing decks on each side. The throttle control moves forward to increase engine speed and back to decrease speed. The throttle should be positioned half open for starting and full or all the way open for mowing and transport. The high-low speed switch adjusts the engine for mowing in low and transport in high. Always mow in the low position on the switch. On the 4500 and 4700 models, the power takeoff switch lifts up to engage the cutting deck blades and presses down to disengage. A power takeoff toggle switch engages the blades on the 4300 model. The charge indicator light next to the key switch illuminates if the system charging circuit malfunctions. The engine oil pressure light illuminates if the engine oil pressure is dangerously low. The engine coolant temperature warning light illuminates if the engine reaches dangerously high temperatures. The cutting decks will disengage prior to engine shutdown. The diagnostic light will illuminate if the sensors on the mower detect an engine malfunction. If any of these indicators illuminate or are out of normal operating range, immediately stop the mower and have it serviced. The hour meter is on the side of the right armrest on the 4300, 4500, and 4700 models. A manual cooling fan switch is also in this location on the 4500 and 4700 models. Both the 4500 and 4700 Groundsmasters have the automatic Smart Cool system, which reverses the cooling fan to blow chaff and dust off of the radiator screen if engine temperature rises. A manual activation switch is located on the side of the control arm. You should manually reverse the fan when the rear screen is becoming clogged and prior to entering the shop area. There is a 12-volt power jack on the control arm, along with storage spots for a radio or phone. The controls and gauges on the 3500 and 3505 are located to the operator's right in the same configuration for both models. Controls on the console are the key ignition switch with start, run, and stop position, throttle to control engine speed, cutting deck lift lever to lower and raise the decks. On the 3500 model, the lever also moves the sidewinder cutting decks left or right. A lift lock lever that pulls back to prevent the decks from dropping during transport. A power takeoff switch to start and stop power to the cutting blades. Gauges on the console include an hour meter, alternator warning light, glow plug indicator, engine temperature warning light, and low oil pressure warning light. The parking brake is a lever next to the console. A slope warning indicator to the right of the steering column shows if you are on an incline that is too steep. Refer to the operator manual for the model you are using to be sure you know and understand all the controls and gauges for operation of that mower. Perform basic preventive maintenance checks on the mower before starting the engine. Locate the hydraulic tank on the unit and check the hydraulic fluid level. Always clean any debris before removing the cap. Remove the dipstick and check to be sure that the hydraulic fluid level is within 1/4 inch of the notch. Check the engine oil level at the dipstick. It is located under the hood on the right side of the 4500 and 4700 models, and the left side on the 4300, 3500, and 3505 models. Remove the dipstick. If the oil level is not within the notch area, add the recommended oil at the oil filler cap. Check the battery, located on the right side of the machine near the fuse block, or behind the operator's seat, depending on the model. Locate the coolant expansion tank and check that the level is between the two lines. If additional coolant is needed, add it through the expansion tank. Never remove the radiator cap because coolant under pressure is dangerous. Inspect the radiator and oil cooler at the rear of the engine. The oil cooler tips out by unlatching the two clips. Clear any chaff, dust, and debris off the surfaces with high-pressure air. The fuel gauge is next to the fuel tank filler cap on the right side of the machine on the 4000 models, and on the left side below the seat on 3000 models. To refuel, be sure the machine is level and in an open area. Use only diesel fuel. Mixing or using the wrong fuel can cause needless downtime and repair. Fill the fuel tank just to the bottom of the fill neck. When fueling, always make sure there is no open flame or ignition source that could ignite the fuel. The Groundsmasters are equipped with several safety interlock switches that should be checked before operation. Have the unit in a large open area. Put the cutting units down with the parking brake on. Stop the engine. Depress the traction pedal and try to start the engine. It should not crank. Start the engine, lift off the seat, and try to engage the PTO power takeoff. It should not engage. With the engine still running, without your weight on the seat, move the traction pedal out of neutral. The engine should shut off. If any of these interlock checks do not work, do not operate the machine. Report the situation to your maintenance supervisor. It is strongly recommended that you stop the engine before leaving the seat. However, if necessary, you may get off the seat with the engine running. Have the traction pedal in neutral, the power takeoff disengaged, and fully engage the parking brake. Before starting the job, perform a routine inspection of the mower and adjust mower settings. The height of cut adjustment is done with height of cut bolts. There are 3 bolts on each deck. The cutting units can be set from 3/4 to 4 inches in 1/4 inch increments. Ensure all decks are set to the same height. If the mower has lights, make sure that all work lights are functional. To start the unit, have your foot off the traction pedal and set the parking brake. Push the throttle halfway open and put the PTO switch in the neutral off position. During cold weather or the first start of the day, turn the ignition switch to the on or preheat position. Once the glow indicator light dims, turn the key to the start position and release the key when the engine starts. Don't crank the engine for longer than 15 seconds. If the engine doesn't start, turn the key to the off position. Wait 15 seconds and repeat the entire starting procedure. After the engine is warmed up and running smoothly, increase the throttle to full power. Always mow with the engine at full throttle. Reduce the engine throttle to low for a few moments before stopping the engine to cool the turbocharger before shutdown. All Groundsmaster mowers are designed for a single operator. Never carry a passenger or allow children or untrained adults to operate the machine. It's a good idea to operate your Groundsmaster in an open area under supervision until you get used to the mower. Practice driving on a flat surface away from obstacles until you are comfortable with the controls and maneuverability. Practice going forward and reverse with the decks both up and down. Also practice stopping by using the traction control pedal and using the brakes. On the 4700 model, one or both of the wing decks can be raised while in motion to mow in between objects or along narrower areas. Maneuver around trees and other obstacles so you are familiar with the space required to use the mower you are operating. When you reach the job site, check the area for debris and remove items that could be picked up and thrown by the blades. Debris such as tree limbs, rocks, or other items could damage the machine or could be discharged from the cutting deck, causing damage or injury. Before mowing, make sure that you are aware of buildings or windows that could be damaged by thrown objects. Set your mowing pattern to minimize debris from hitting windows or buildings. If anyone comes into the area you are mowing, stop the unit, disengage the blade until the area is clear. Thrown objects from the mower could seriously injure bystanders. As you approach the mowing area, lower the cutting decks once the front decks are over the mowing area and engage the PTO switch. To achieve a professional straight line cut and even striping, find a tree or other object in the distance and drive straight toward it. For turnaround, raise the cutting decks as you leave the cutting area. Drop them as you approach the cutting area after your turn. Mow around bunkers, ponds, or other contours aligning with the outside cutting deck, keeping the tractor tires as far away from the edge as possible. If you suspect you have hit an object like a curb, branch, or rock, disengage the blades, shut off the engine, and remove the key from the ignition before investigating. Inspect the cutting decks to ensure they are still functioning properly. The 4700 model wing decks are designed to retract back and upward on a slow-speed impact. Be sure to verify that the deck is back in the proper position and functioning before resuming work. If anything changes in the sound of the engine or cutting decks, or you notice any unusual smells, immediately stop the unit. If a cutting deck becomes clogged or is not working properly, disengage the power takeoff, shut down the engine, and remove the key before attempting to clear the decks or inspect the equipment. Never use your hands or feet to clear the blades or underside of the decks. Never put your face near the blades or underside of the decks. Debris may be holding the blades under tension and could move the blades even with the power takeoff and engine off. Using a piece of wood or stick, clear the blades and underside of the cutting decks with extreme caution. Look ahead of your cutting path for obstacles that you may encounter. Stay away from drop-offs, ditches, steep banks, or water. Wheels dropping over edges can cause a rollover, leading to serious injury or death. Always use caution to avoid snaring trees, fences, or other objects, especially with models with side or wing cutting decks. Use special caution when mowing on or near slopes. And never mow on a hill that has not been approved by your supervisor. Refer to the operator's manual for maximum slope limitations. Reduce speed and avoid sudden stops and starts. If possible, do not raise or lower decks while moving on a slope. Be aware of hazards at the bottom of the slope. When mowing on a slope, you may have to use the steering brakes to maintain traction control. Feather the uphill brake to transfer more power to the downhill wheel for more traction. If you operate or transport on a public street, always have the required safety signs and equipment in accordance with local laws and regulations. When you are transporting the mower on public streets, raise and lock all decks in their full up position. If the unit must be pushed or towed, open the hydraulic bypass valves to prevent damage to the hydraulics. This should be done by your maintenance staff and is detailed in the operator's manual. The unit should be pushed or towed no more than 1/4 of a mile and no faster than 2 miles per hour. Toro recommends refueling at the end of each day while the mower is warm to reduce fuel moisture condensation. Always clean and check the machine over at the end of the day. Turn off the engine, set the parking brake, and remove the key. Allow the engine to cool. Use low-pressure water to wash off the cutting decks, under the decks, and the attachment points of the side cutting decks. The oil cooler tips out by unlatching the 2 clips for a quick blowout of dirt and debris. Use compressed air to remove debris from around the radiator and oil cooler. Clean the center and all 4 corners of the radiator on both sides. Do not use water to wash these areas, which could cause the cooling fins to be clogged and not work properly. Clean around the engine area with compressed air. Proper lubrication should be done after cleaning to minimize rust and corrosion and to keep moving parts running smoothly. Refer to the operator's manual for all lubrication points. After cleaning, the machine should be inspected for possible hydraulic or other fluid leaks. If you suspect a hydraulic leak, use a piece of cardboard, not your hand, to find the leak. Hydraulic fluid escaping under pressure can penetrate the skin and cause serious injury. periodically check the tire pressure. Incorrect tire pressure can affect the traction, performance, and quality of cut. Tire pressure for each model can be found in the operator's manual. If you need to jack up the Groundsmaster in the front, use the front drive tire axle. For the rear, use the center of the axle or jack point on the three-wheeled models. Always remember to use jack stands when working on a unit that is jacked up. If you are unsure about any part of operating the Groundsmaster model you are using, refer to the operator's manual or contact your supervisor. Thank you for safely operating Toro's contour cutting Groundsmaster mowers.